Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. Excuse me, this show is obviously one of them. I also have a book out on Amazon. It's called Soar, my debut book, and it's a book on spiritual growth and transformation and shows how I partnered with the universe to create my new reality. We also have a Facebook group, and we would love to have you join us there. You can find us at liveauthentically.today/FB. And we have an amazing show in store for you guys today. I am super pumped to have with me Stephen Weber and Katherine Plant. Good morning.
Oh, such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for sharing your audience with us. This spiritual growth, that's what first attracted me to your show, is because that's what this whole experience has been for me and Kathie. It's a transformation in spiritual growth. So we're especially humbled, and thank you for having us on your program today.
Oh, you are most welcome. Thank you. All right. So I'd love to hear about your journeys and everything that you do in the world. But I always start every show off with the same question, and I'd love to hear you both individually answer this question. Drum roll. Are you ready?
All set?
All right. What does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
Kathie, it's you first.
I'll go first every day.
Thank you.
Authentically means to me to live consciously and honoring the spiritual aspects that I have, as well as the spiritual aspects of everyone else. If you are truly looking at the divinity within everyone, you see it in yourself. But then when I look at everyone that I come in contact with, I see the divinity in them too. We're connected. So what I can do the best to live authentically is to lift myself up, always stay in a high vibe, so that everyone that I come into contact with could raise their vibe, and then we could help the collective. And I do that through spiritual means. Like a spiritual journey for me is like a gym membership, in that you can't just go once and have results. You have to have a practice. So every day you have to do things mindfully, whether that's meditation, yoga, exercise, watching spiritual videos, and YouTubers like you yourself that do so much for the world and of positivity, reading books, any kind of practices, receiving energy healing, taking energy healing as a class, even if you don't want to go into the practice, just to learn about ourselves from a spiritual perspective. So it's just sharing with everyone and honoring myself and honoring others.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, Kathie and I, because we spend every day together, we have the same outlook towards things. And so I like to say everything what Kathie says, I agree with, of course, because those are the things that that are part of our lives. But also, having had this near-death experience and this beautiful revelation in my life, because Kathie, even though Kathie and I were good friends for a long time, she was more of a spiritual person. I was more of a beer and hot wings and Harley Davidson's person. And so this whole has been like a open the door and see the colors experience for me, spiritually speaking. And so every day living authentically is all the things which Kathie says. But for me to come in terms, to understand that experience that I had, and all the love and the light, and that to not only share, that is such a big part of it, but also to listen and to grow and to feel the energy and to feel the experience. Because I truly believe in living authentically is that all of us, we truly have the power. There's so much nuttiness going on in this world, and through the power of positivity and positive attraction, the law of attraction, by creating positive vibes, by sharing the love and light and using ethics and spirituality as an asset in today's world, not as a liability. These are the things I carry with me every day. So to live authentically is just to keep on keeping on and feeling the love, learning and growing, and realizing that we do have the power to change the world.
I love that. Such beautiful and rich answers. Thank you both. So based on your answers, I kind of, I don't pre-script my shows, but I always kind of naturally come up with questions in my mind that I'm just curious about. But I'm going to take a little bit of a detour here, a little bit of different direction, because I just, from hearing you talk and your stories about, when you said you're a beer and hot wings person, and now you're this, spiritual guru, spreading love and light in the world. And here you are together. You mentioned that you're friends for a long time. So I want to hear the story.
Thank you.
Inquiring minds want to know. I would
Well,
love, in all seriousness, I would love to hear like what prompted your awakening. You mentioned a near death experience. So can we just kind of color in the chronology? Because I think it's just so incredibly beautiful. And you've come here together, and I would guess that you have what's called a conscious relationship, kind of that the
no,
whole.
we're common laws. She's my love of my life. She's my everything. We're each other. We're just apart for this short time because we have a illness in the family, and so we're all doing our part to be there for each other. So, in fact, this is the first time we've been apart since being together. So it is very, it's very meaningful for us two to be here together to share this moment. But if I was to share it, I'll be glad to. It's well, it was a day like any other day. I'm a Harley driver. I'm a computer guy, definitely. But Harleys were my life, and being a dad was my life. I was a stay-at-home dad, and I focused on my kids, and I ran a small computer business out of my home. But I love my Harleys, and whenever I got the chance, I'd drive out on Eastern Long Island. Here we are in New York, and go out east and have some barbecue. And that's basically what I did this afternoon. Sunday afternoon, drove out. On my way home, there was a lot of traffic. A truck was coming in the opposite direction and T-boned me, a truck. And wow, it was the lights went out. I didn't know what had happened. And the next things I knew is that I was riding in a helicopter and being airlifted to what I immediately recognized as Stony Brook Hospital. Just as dumb luck has it, I was in the premier trauma center in the United States. If anywhere else, I would have died. And then I would have been really upset about it. Now, come to terms with things. It's cool. I don't want to die, but then I would have really been upset. But I just tell you, it was surreal. And the last things I remember for a long time is like landing on the tarmac there, and like realizing, wow, things are going to change forever. Wow. And then now I was brought into emergency surgery. My spine was broken. They had to put all these pins and needles put together to put my hip together. I had multiple internal injuries. It was touch and go for 3 weeks. I was in a coma. There was constant medical attention. Those people there are angels of love and light. I felt the energy, and I just love those people and those health workers. They cared. I mean, no, it was a job, but I saw them. I looked at them. I felt their energy. No, there was love there. I know that sometimes you get pretty callous with dealing with the public every day, but no, I felt it, and that's what really helped to bring me through. But the first experience I had, it was so rooted in my regular life. I didn't know anything was different. I really didn't. It was every month. I'm a computer guy, so I was faced with a lot of computer issues. And so I was working with people, and nothing seemed different. But then all of a sudden, things started to change. Is that I started to see people who I haven't seen in years, but they looked just as I remembered them. Mm-hmm. But then I would see them as older people, like 80s, but I would still recognize them. Okay. Then I started to see men who I knew as men. I started to see them in women as women, and then women as men, all shapes and sizes, genders, nationalities, but I would still be able to recognize each of them. And what I was being taught was my very first lesson in that place between here and there, is how to recognize spirit, that part of us that goes on forever. That part of us that is our continuation of consciousness that is always in spirit, and that we are part of that everybody has a spirit. And that was my very first lesson in that place, is to learn how to see spirit. And so that was my experiences for quite a long time in that place. I was only there for 3 weeks in our time, but in spirit time, it was lifetimes, because it wasn't that the sun set or fell. It was that the learning and the growth and the bliss drove everything. It really did. It wasn't that I saw beautiful colors and grandma or anything like that. It was that all of a sudden is I didn't feel like I had any hate or animosity towards anybody or anything. I didn't. I felt no hate or animosity or guilt to myself or all the things I've been through. And all of a sudden, that was a tremendous weight lifted from me. All of a sudden, everything was okay. I didn't have to worry about anything. It's like being at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you could just everything's okay, and you could just focus on the love and the light and the personal growth and the spirit. And so in the first place, I was given what I call what I termed learning the language of the universe. But at first, in that way that I saw spirit, I was taught many lessons about spirit and about why we're here and about the connected nature of everybody, that we're all connected, that the creation and the creator are one.
Yeah.
We are all connected, but
Right.
we're also one. The creator and the creation are one. So these are all the things I've learned. I called it learning the wisdom of the universe, but really it was the syncing with the Akashic record. I was sharing everything that I experienced and downloading all the important things that were known in the universe. And this was giving me that spiritual knowledge to go on to the next step. And the very next step was a life review, where I reviewed all the events in my life. And I lived them over and over again, not like I was in my body. It was more like a voyeur. I couldn't affect events, but now I could see spirit. Those events were very different to me now. I saw that for everything that happened, every reason, everyone had their own path for being there. There was a physical reason, being in the physical world, but there was a spiritual reason. And all of a sudden, all my life experiences took on a very deeper meaning to me. And I understood things much, much deeper. And then once I had my life review, it would start all over again. And now I would be in such a blissful state because I learned so much, and so many of the pains I rose above, that I would go through it again, because that I was now at a higher level of spiritual awareness. And this would go over time and time again. It wasn't that there was a consciousness, excuse me. It wasn't that there was a consciousness beyond myself which was driving this process. It was that the need, as long as I kept learning, I kept on growing. And each time I started this, wow, I knew I was going to be in for a rough ride, but I was happy to, because I knew by the end I would feel such bliss and so many things would be free from myself. But what I've truly learned is that some of the most painful experiences in my life were the ones that I learned the most from, the ones that brought me the most bliss. And then it fundamentally changed the way I looked at people, because now when I looked at people in my life who caused me really terrible things, I don't look at them with hatred anymore, or jealousy or animosity, because I think of the bliss that I received from that knowledge. I'll never let anybody do anything bad to me. No, that's not the purpose. When bad things happen, I'll accept them. I'm not going to have hate or bitterness, especially when losing lost loved ones. I'm going to find the peace. I'm going to find the love, and I'm not going to let that blockage sink its way in, because it's those blockages which really cause all of, at least for me, all of any pain or discomfort in my world. And then finally, after going through all these life reviews, I was tested. I didn't know I was being tested at the time. I just thought, and when I say I had no idea I was someplace else, it sounds so strange to tell the story now and say I didn't know, but I just didn't know. It was just so dynamic. I almost felt like questioning it would make it all go away, because I was so wrapped up into it. I really was. It was my existence. I loved learning and growing. It was, I often thought like about heaven, like, was it like just clouds and angels and picking, and how could that be fun? And no, it's all of this, which is the beauty of it all. It really is, truly. And then finally is that I was in the very last situation I was tested. And like I said, I didn't know I was being tested. And I was put in charge of these kids, and I had to teach them a task. And no matter what I did, they wouldn't listen to me. Not one word. No matter what I did, I tried every way that you would try to manipulate people, like in an earthly way, like to bribe them, to form teams, like, hey, go team, you guys go this way, motivating. Nothing worked. But I would feel like I would connect with them. But then as soon as they would go away, they would scatter. They wouldn't do anything. And I was failing. And finally, when I was at my wit's end, is I approached the person in charge and I stood before them. And for the very first time, as I realized that that person was me. Not me, Stevie Weber, but me, my higher self, that part of me which is always in spirit and guiding me and enabling me to have these experiences to add to the all that is. And when I stood before them and before him and I felt his awareness, and I say his just broadly speaking, it's a spiritual awareness, then all of a sudden I saw what I was there for. Really, what I was there for is these kids, young adults. They were actually spirits who were evolving, and I was there to prepare them for their first human incarnation. And that was a task that I failed at, because all I did is I saw them as kids, dopey kids. You know, I didn't see them as real spirits, real people. I didn't really understand. The spirit world went through all this time to teach me how to see spirit and how to relate. In my very first opportunity, I failed at it because I didn't see. I just walked in with all my old prejudices and everything else. And it wasn't until I realized that, with the help of my higher self, that truly I was able to help them. But there was something very strange. There was this lady there who was always praying, and that it was confusing to me because it was distracting. It really was, because everything had a purpose there. Everything did, except for this lady, at least from where I was saying. But I felt such a love, and I wanted to know why she was there. So finally, I did ask my higher self, why she was there, and he said that she was invited. And just as that invited tone was like echoing in my mind, I had now found myself in the very last place that I was in that place. And that was this overlook in my hometown. It's called the Bluff in Kings Park. And it's where everyone goes at the end of the day and drinks coffee. And some people drink out of red Solo cups that aren't coffee and watch the sunset. So at the end of every day, I sat there with these two fellas, old friends of mine, Joey and John, and we'd watch the sunset. And then one day, I came to the realization that Joey and Johnny, they both died this year. They did. Johnny, he's a good guy. He was like the voice of God in church. He had a way of doing these readings like, and Jesus said, like, whoa, I hope the roof does that. I mean, he was just such a good guy, and he had this leg. He had diabetes, and he always had this infection problems with his leg, and that eventually took his life. And Joey, he had broke his neck diving in the water. And at the Bluff, when he was a little kid, he lived his whole life walking like Frankenstein. And they were just such good friends of mine. They both had died earlier that year, and those were the really first people who I saw who had passed. And all of a sudden, I realized in like a moment, like, wow, this can't be real. Something's going on. Is I know Joey and Johnny can't be here. And this went over time and time again. And I felt like this building sense of urgency. And then I thought if I didn't ask them this time, I'd never have this chance again. And so I asked them, why are they here? And they said, because they're here to make sure that I'm okay. And that kind of reverberated to me, because I didn't know anything was wrong with me. On the outside, I was in critical care, but on the inside, I've been walking around having all these wonderful experiences, and I'm okay. And just as he was saying that, it was reverberating in my mind as we watched the sun set. It got brighter and brighter and brighter. Then when I couldn't stand anymore, I opened my eyes. I was in my hospital room, and my mother and my sister were hanging over me. telling me that everything would be okay. And and so that was, and believe it or not, that was my time there. That was only half the journey. It really was. It was only half the journey, because it wasn't until I realized who that lady who was praying for me. It's my friend Kathy, my co-author.
Wow.
She was praying for me there, and I heard her prayers. And so as soon as I was all tied up, and as soon as I got my phone, I picked up my phone, my dear friends, just friends, I texted her.
Yeah, that was an interesting time because we had been very good friends. And like he said, he was not a spiritual person, but I was. And it was an interesting dynamic because he didn't get me, but we were involved in town stuff together. So we were still friends anyway. And I was not a biker type of person. So that like, but we would hang out. I mean, it was kind of funny because he had long hair and a leather jacket and tattoos, and I'd be wearing pink and
She
you know,
walked across the street the first time she met me. I had to go across the street and say, "Excuse me, ma'am, you're in traffic. Why don't you go on this side of the street?"
it was a little scary. But as I got to know him, he turned out to be a very beautiful person. So we were friends for, I don't know, maybe 15 years, and then he got into the accident. And when I heard that, it just rocked me. I couldn't be in the hospital because he was not next of kin. So I did what I always did, being a prayerful spiritual person, knowing that there is a connection of consciousness. I said to him every day, I said, Steve, I can't be in the hotel room, the hospital room with you, but I'm going to pray every day. So pretend I'm in the hospital room with you. I'm holding your hand, sitting next to the bed. And I mean, visualization and prayer together is very powerful. I cannot stress that enough. I said, just pretend I'm there. I'm holding your hand and we're going to be praying. And I did this. I said, I'm not going to give up. You have to come back. You just have to. I mean, your family needs you. The community needs you. He was on the school board. He was in local politics. He was involved in so much. It was just unfathomable that this guy would not be alive. And it was very grim. He was on the verge of life or death. We didn't think he would come back, honestly. So I said this prayer every day. A week went by, week and a half. Oh my gosh. It was traumatic because being in that state for that long, you could have brain trauma. If you wake up, you could have like full body trauma. So I just overdrive with the prayers. And then one day, 3 weeks later, in the middle of the night, I'm in bed, I get a text and it says, "Hi Kath, it's Steve. I'm okay. I just want to thank you for visiting me when I was quote unquote out, if you know what I mean." And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I I knew that you could communicate. So I texted back. I said, "You mean you know?" And he texted back and he said, "Let's just say I've been to a place where I've learned that everyone is connected, but that you and I have a connection that goes beyond this earth. I heard your prayers. I learned so much and I want to talk to you." And it was amazing because the thing that's different about that story is that when we connect with spirit, like my mom's past, my brother's past, I speak to saints and angels, I get validations back, but they always remain in spirit. So you could always chalk it up to it's my active imagination or I'm cuckoo. But when someone comes back to earth to validate that that communication took place, and he used the words that I spoke, it was just amazing. So
It was because I couldn't make sense of the lady there, is that I didn't understand it. But it's like the power of prayer. I never believed in prayer in the sense like I did it out of obligation. Say your Our Father, say your Hail Marys. I never believed in prayer and really doing anything. I felt it like it was an obligation. But it was that when I heard what I later learned was Kathie's prayers, it wasn't the words. It was the energy. It was the love. I mean, that was the thing that I really truly believe in my experience is the purpose of prayer. It's not the words. It's the expression of the love and the energy that you create. And that's what I felt from Kathie. Now that I could see spirit, I knew who it was. So I knew who it was right away. But and it was just an amazing thing because that having her and having made this connection with her, it was just, it was. So we were very casual friends, but during my rehabilitation, wow, man, I could not walk. I was in worse shape. I mean, I had a long way to go. And Kathie is like halfway between Sergeant Slaughter and Mother Teresa. Sometimes she can be, oh, honey. Other times like, wow, you go, blah, 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 blah. But really, it was during this process that there was another voice there. In fact, there were two voices. It was my friends, Joey and Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it, but when they said to make sure that I was okay, they didn't mean there. They meant here. They were my spirit guides. That Joey had a broken back, like my broken back, and Johnny his leg, like my leg. My leg was shattered. Who else? They were there for me. They were there through this rehabilitation. It wasn't like when I say spirit guides, like, oh, okay, Stevie, one more. That was Kathie's job. But it wasn't like that. It was like this energy. It was like this surety. Okay, this is what it was. It was like a surety of results. That was almost like we've been there. You can do it. But I felt this energy. It wasn't the words. It was kind of like the awareness when I was standing before my higher self. It wasn't words. It was like an awareness. And it just gave me such a wow, such a thrill. And I tell you, Kathie, she very, I don't want to say, but she's a very important person to me. And so that's the way it was going for a while. Things were just getting so much better. And then my son, 20 years old, died of a heroin overdose. And this is my life. I mean, really, I was a stay-at-home dad. He was a New York State championship wrestler on an academic and an athletic scholarship to one of the premier universities in the United States. He played the saxophone like Dizzy Gillespie played the horn. He played the guitar like Jimi Hendrix played the guitar. He played the piano like Mozart. I mean, he was lights out. He was brilliant. It was just so heartbreaking. And I kind of lost touch. I had lost touch with the place between here and there for a long time. And I don't know. It was so difficult because I blame myself, You blame yourself because you think of all the things that how you failed, like all the things you could have done better as a parent, you think you really. And it was so difficult is that I thought that I always tried the best. I was on the school board, I did everything, but I wasn't a perfect person. I was a biker. I liked beer and hot wings and partying and, but I was a good guy. I worked really hard. I was excellent. People think very highly of me as a computer engineer. I'm employed. I get a paycheck, but it was just different. It was just so difficult. And that was when Kathie started walking with me. And we started spending a lot of time together and more time, like personal time. Like at this time, we were at the end of our marriages at that time, long since moved on. And so we're just kind of like putting back together our lives together. And one day when we were out walking, Kathie said, my son's name was Nick. She said, did Nick ever try to contact you? Mm-hmm. And I tell you, that got me so angry. I mean, at the time, I know I love Kathy, but we were at this time we were just friends. I mean, but very close friends. But I was like, I've known this lady for like 20 years. I mean, what, my son talked to me? I'm like sitting here grieving and I'm looking for really real help. And you're telling me my son's going to contact me? But, I knew she was meaning us. So I was like, okay, Kathy, yeah, yeah. No, no, not yet. But the next thing I know is Kathy's dragging me all over Long Island, and she's bringing little statues of St. Teresa, and we're setting them up in the woods, and we're putting all little rocks down and like pens for people to write prayers on them. And all of a sudden, like all these places that we started, like putting one rock and one pen and one statue of St. Teresa, all of a sudden we'd come back the next day and there are 25 rocks there with all prayers on them. I was just like, and that was the first like healing step that I took, in the sense like, wow, it's kind of like Sting's song when he talks about the message in the bottle and puts the one bottle out there and 10,000 thousands of bottles, and he realizes he's not in the world, alone in the world. And that was the real thing, is that I realized that every one of those rocks, that other people had very similar experiences to that I had, that I wasn't alone, and that I had Kathy, and we had each other, and that there was going to be a way. I didn't know, but at least I had faith that there was going to be a way. And then, well, the most oddest thing happened. We had these Saint Teresa statues. I mean, I didn't even know who Saint Teresa was at this time. And then my cousin, a mutual friend of Kathy and ours, she went to a psychic. Remember that, Kathy?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, what had happened was there was the anniversary of Nick's passing, and everywhere we went, I started to find roses, just long stem roses, just laying on a trail. We go to a trail, we'd go to a park, wherever we went. I said, Steve, there's something about these roses. I said, the last time this happened where I saw something on successive days, it was a message from my brother after he had passed, when for a whole week, I found a silver heart everywhere I went.
Wow.
And that then later on, it was validated by a psychic that my brother was sending the hearts, but I knew that. So I was trying to tell Steve, I think Nick is sending you roses. It's the anniversary of his passing. So he didn't believe me. He said, people just leave roses behind. So, but we've never found them before every day for a week. But, he didn't listen. So one day his cousin goes to a psychic, and the psychic says to her, do you know a Nick? Now, she wasn't going to connect with Nick. She was going to connect with her grandmother. So she said, oh, yeah, I know Nick. Yeah, you could bring him through. And she said, well, Nick is saying that he's got a synchronicity with Saint Teresa and he's sending roses. Now, Lisa knew what was going on. She's like, oh my gosh. And then the psychic said all these other things, that they have a synchronicity. When is Nick's birthday? And Lisa said it's January 2nd. And she goes, well, that's Saint Teresa's birthday.
Okay.
And with that knowledge, I thought, wow, when I share this with Steve, because I was friends with his cousin, so I knew before he did, I said, he's going to realize that Nick is trying to contact him and let him know that he was okay. And even when I brought that to his attention, he said, oh, that's just a coincidence. I was like, are you kidding me? I said, he said he's sending roses. I said, wow. Why did I pick I just picked Saint Teresa to make a shrine. I mean, there's got to be something to this. He did not budge. I was like, Steve, this is insane. But a few weeks later, a friend of ours gave a prayer card to leave at the little shrine that we made. So I dragged him there, and we placed the card, and I'm looking at the card even closer. And I said, Steve, you're not going to believe this. I said, not only did St. Teresa and Nick share a birthday, but on the card, it lists her canonization day. That's the day that a saint is made a saint by the church. And it was the day he passed.
Wow.
And I was like, Steve, what are the odds that they share the same birthday and that he died on her canonization day? And she said, the psychic said that he's sending roses and he has a synchronicity. And he goes, well, maybe there's something to this.
Well,
Yeah, and
the
I was
way
going to
the
say,
way
and
Kathy puts it, and it is true because Kathy was teasing me for a long time about it because she was trying to convince me, and because I was a computer guy, and even though I had this experience in the place between here and there, as I put it off as Steve's imagination, I put it as the drugs they gave me while I was in the hospital. I really didn't, it wasn't until that I really had that realization between the Nick thing that I started to put everything together, that I really started to come to the realization that that whole experience, in the place between here and there wasn't my imagination. It was real. It wasn't a dream. And that I was put in that position to prepare me for this very difficult life event and the loss of my son. But now when I look back at everything that happened and everything that happened at that time, I was finally coming to the realization that place was real. And as soon as I came to that realization that the place was real, that it wasn't my imagination, I got my son back. I really did. Because up until that point, is that the only thing I thought about is the circumstances under which he passed.
yeah,
Not about all the fun times we had together. And now, after having that experience in the place between here and there, and all these realizations and all the bliss that I felt, and knowing that he is in that place too now. And that
yeah,
he's experiencing so
wonderful.
many of those things that I experienced. And there is communication can take place. And you will be together. But again, as your higher selves, in all the glory and everything that you are and your all purpose for being here. And it was that gave me my son back. It was releasing the grief. It was understanding the place between here and there, and that I was always in loss. I would be lost for all of my life after losing my son. But losing that grief, I got my son back.
Yeah, that is
That's, and
so,
that's the story that Kathy and I are here to share is that life is good and people are good even when very sad things happen.
And don't forget to look for the signs and synchronicities.
yeah, this is such a beautiful and
So
such a powerful
important.
story. I feel like there is just so much here, so much depth and richness, and the power of prayer. I mean, I've experienced that many times in my life, and do have a personal experience with Saint Teresa as well,
Ah,
experiencing the smell of the roses. And I so wish I had time to share it with you. I do have another podcast here in a couple minutes, so I wanted to just say how incredibly beautiful the story was, and just such a power, or such a testament to the power of prayer, connecting to our higher selves, connecting and really trusting in spirit and seeing people in spiritual form. And so I would like to thank both of you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your souls with us today and sharing your story.
and
And
to change the title to not crystals and Reiki, but like
I think so. I think
synchronicities.
yes, this is what needed. This is what the universe wanted to come out. The message.
I was eventually going to get to
Yeah. So
that.
we'll definitely do that. I'll definitely let my editors know the kind of the direction sort of changed, but this is just we just flowed with the messaging that needed to be bestowed. So I thank you both for being here. And if people would like to get a hold of you directly, what's the best way for them to do that?
It'd be at info@between here and there, and this is our book, The Place Between Here and There. It's available on Amazon, and we go into a lot of detail. But also it's info@betweenhereandthere.org, info@betweenhereandthere.org, and write us. People share and we share. At least right now, we're all in this together, and through the law of attraction, we can change the world. We really can.
I love that. Such a beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much. And thank you to our viewers and listeners. I believe that time is a choice, and I am grateful that you have chosen to be here to listen to Stephen and Katherine's message today. So again, I'd love to have you join my Facebook community, check out our books on SOAR, and have a beautiful day filled with love and light. We will see you all soon. Thank you.